Nathan Buckley, welcome.
Morning, Gerard. You're doing well, mate. There's many forms of courage.
Never been accused of that before.
I think you. Yeah, well, it's not an accusation. It's a pat on the back. You're still pushing your voice out there, though, mate. Just step back. You're gonna get to 12 o'clock, mate.
Hey, you sat here on Wednesday and extolled the virtues of Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. You said you'd take him 10 times over Harley Reid, and then all unfolded before us yesterday. The buck stops is for Victoria Police Made for More Search Police Careers, and that's Naz.
I think they'll both be exceptional players, but geez, what that is the buck stops. I mean, I was sitting having a few beers with some mates on a Sunday afternoon with just keeping an eye on the St Kilda Melbourne game on the screen, and I thought, oh, geez, the Saints are coming a little bit. 9 minutes to go, 5 goals down still, and think, oh, that's probably a little bit difficult. And then you look up 2 minutes later, and it's only 3 goals, and 2 minutes later, and it's 1 goal, and then everyone in the arena or in the establishment just stopped and was watching. So it was full. There was about 50 people there. Yep. Chat, and then silence, and then watching the TV screen. And Wanganeen-Milera takes that mark. You just think, oh my God. Like there's skill, there's talent, ability, whatever you want to call it, and then there's seizing the moments. And the moment was seized by a young bloke who is just starting to understand. Well, he's probably always known it, but we're starting to understand how he has understood his greatness. And he's really young, and there's still so much to go. But when he lined up for that goal, there was no doubt in my mind. There was no doubt. It was nearly like he's just such a pure, talented, skillful player, but he just owned the moment. Black dot, right over the black dot, right over the umpire's hat. And then again, he didn't need to do much in the last one other than kick a point. But, yeah, fantastic to witness and amazing for St Kilda. Really disappointing for Melbourne, but just the individual brilliance of a young man who got it done when it needed to get done.
So what does it tell us about his talent and about what he might grow into?
Well, in the last 6 weeks, like say, that's a 34-4 performance. You know, to be able to hit the scoreboard, and obviously he's off the half back line now. He's roaming through the midfield, a line forward of where he has been, and then starting to swim in the shallow waters of the forward line and striking. So he had 4 shots on goal against Geelong last week, 36 and kicked 2. 2 weeks before that against Hawthorn, had 43, had 3 shots on goal, 3 points. 2 weeks before that against Collingwood, 35 touches. So he's just starting to fill his boots even more. So he's gone from just being a possession accumulator and distributor. Thought early this year he showed us his aerial talent. Like he started going for intercept marks over 1v1s or over 2v2s, when before that he was staying on the ground to be the receive player to distribute, which is his primary role. But he's starting to feel himself a little bit. He's starting, I can do this and I can do that. He's showing us new strings to his bow continually. And taking a contested mark between 2 players is, when the game needs, and the sticky mitts. And then not just that, but the roll and straight back up on your feet. Like he knew exactly what he was doing and how he was doing it. And to be able to seize that moment was exceptional. I mean, how good was it? It would have been almost impossible for anyone not to look at that and smile.
Yep. Even
Demon supporters.
Oh, I've got a few Melbourne supporters who aren't quite feeling it. But
but I think like on any measure, to see a young man take those strides and take those steps. And I'm not talking about the St Kilda win as such. I'm just looking at him. Yes. I think that's everything that sport is about, to see someone step into the moment and to step into that opportunity and to take it. And looking forward to seeing whatever he does in the next decade.
So how important a signature is he?
Oh, look, it becomes absolutely compelling, doesn't it? What does it change? It probably weds him to, like, the way that his teammates got around him straight after. I mean, those emotional scenes, it's pretty hard to walk away from something like that. He obviously has a strong connection with his coach. Yeah, it's Yeah, it would be a shame to see him move on. But then when you really boil it down, can he? Like if Adelaide is a potential target, how do either of those teams get it done? I find it difficult on an emotional on a logical basis, and now on an emotional basis to see him leave. But there might be not an extra zero, but there might be a few more numbers at the front.
The big issue is, how did it happen? It was utterly fascinating, wasn't it?
It was, and it was a perfect storm across that last quarter. Like, even Jack Steele's one-hander where it comes in and he's got 2 or 3 pairs coming over the top of him and he sticks up his left mitt and it sort of comes back down into his armpit to kick a goal early in that last quarter. You know, Mason Wood had to take some contested marks and finish well. Higgins, even the little touch with Rivers, and then McVie loses his head. Like, sort of, all he needed to do was just hold him up. But gave the 50 away. He's probably going to kick it anyway. The way that the momentum goes, but Melbourne just couldn't find. Like they're betwixt and between. Like, when you logically, they've been coaching, and we've seen the evolution of their ball movement, more fluid, more open, more expansive, and that was not necessarily what the last quarter was calling for. But they were prepared to step into that, to go and score. You're not going to sit on your heels. We're going to go and score and knock out St Kilda's momentum with our own, which is a change of evolution in what Melbourne have been doing, but they just weren't able to finish. Melksham hits the post. Oliver misses a set shot on goal. Petty drops a mark like a metre away. Oliver misses that boomerang attempt. And St Kilda, to their credit, keep coming, and they take every chance. So it was a perfect storm. That's why you don't see teams come back from 46 points at three-quarter time too often. So it was, and then of course there's a 666 infraction at the end.
Should we delve right into that? So the big issue for Oldham construction lawyers, you're experts in construction law. So who knew what, how it played out? It'll become a cautionary tale as well as a learning for everyone. So I suspect once the warning is removed, these free kicks will become relatively commonplace. There'll be 5 or 6 a weekend. But as it stands, they are incredibly rare. And Melbourne obviously had no clue what they were doing.
I think let's put on it, like, because we all love to back announce. I don't think many clubs would have, and maybe the top 4, because your game's in order and you're set and you know exactly the guts of your transition game, your stoppage game, your personnel, the way that you want to set the game up is entrenched. So you get more time to look at the scenario aspects of it. But I don't think there'd be many clubs that say, okay, what would happen if with 10 seconds left on the clock, we have a 666 infraction against, it's a draw, and we need to defend that particular aspect of the game. I don't know many clubs that would have delved into that particular scenario, but there would be scenarios that you would have gone to that would reflect what you needed to do in that circumstance. It might be a free kick on the wing or a free kick out of centre bounce and having to roll back. Where Viney was is the thing that stood out to me. Like, Jack Viney's trying to clean up the other stuff, but I think he's been a strong leader for a long time, but he's lost his head in terms of trying to clean up the other stuff, forgotten what his primary role is. And the primary role of a leader is to do your job well first. Now, he wouldn't find himself on the wing that often, but it's pretty clear that even in that situation when you're trying to defend, and they're not just trying to defend, they're trying to score as well, because there's still a game to be won. But no, he needed to be like on Caminiti's shoulder, which would have closed down the space and helped Bowie be able to defend the space that ended up being used. St Kilda were sharp, they were on it. Melbourne weren't able to get it done.
So spontaneously drawing up a set play like that, and Marshall's kick is exquisite.
It was brilliant. And there's no doubt as I said, there's elements of that play that would have been rehearsed. There's no doubt that the St Kilda forwards dragged deep and left. So that they were looking at creating some space. There's no doubt that Melbourne, Bowie's positioning in some way knew that he needed to defend that particular part of the ground. But for whatever reason, he turned around and ran away from it right at the moment where he needed to keep his eyes forward and defend it. So there was only and there needed to be a Melbourne player on the mark. So out of all of that, the three things that needed to take place, and if one of them had taken place, it probably would have broken it down. And that was Max Gawn on the mark or a midfielder on the mark to push Rowan Marshall back, Viney to play his role on the wing, and Bowie to keep his eyes forward. Any one of those three happens and it probably prevents that play from occurring, and it's a draw. And Melbourne supporters aren't so much disappointed with the loss. They're just disappointed that they gave away a 9-goal lead, which is disappointing enough. But that's... Yeah, but equally for the things that Melbourne only needed to do one of a handful of things, St Kilda needed to get every single bit of its play right, and they did.
The rest of round 20, which Nathan Buckley for a while was pretty dire. The three of the four biggest blowouts of the season. I thought no team could be more ill-equipped than Essendon, and then North Melbourne took the field. Port gave up in a showdown.
Well, the Saturday night game I actually enjoyed, even though North Melbourne fans wouldn't have enjoyed it. Yeah, and I enjoyed it for Jeremy Cameron and for Bailey Smith. And North, it's not as if they didn't rock up and have a crack. Their pressure was sitting around 190 the whole game, but they just couldn't pressure Geelong well enough to stop them doing what they were doing. Geelong's pressure was good, and they were just able to stop North being able to find any time or space. So the ability of North to be able to move the footy through hands to a player who could have a half a breath to make the next best decision, they just couldn't do that. So that's that little circle game, the inside game, that Geelong were just too strong for North. And then you get outside, and then it's talent. Yeah, so Geelong's front six was just far too strong for North's back six. And I think, well, like we look at it and you look at the margin, you go, okay, 101 points. You think, that's a big margin. And it is a big margin. But there's the gap between Geelong's 23 and North Melbourne's 23 at the moment is absolutely significant. So, yes, if I'm a North fan, I'm looking out. So, I want us to be better than this. And we should be better than this. But right here, right now, they played with 9 players with 20 games or less. So that's 20 games or less. Either you've had a couple of pre-seasons and you haven't been good enough to break into the best team, and you've just sort of been collecting games over 2 or 3 seasons, or you've only had the one pre-season and you're coming to the end of your first and you're starting to wilt a little bit. That's the reality, and that's what it looked like. And it's pretty hard to build any significant sort of platform to try and execute a plan when you don't have, or when you have that many young players that aren't ready to go.
Are you buying that? Is North Melbourne making progress?
Oh, they have, but I having said what I just said, you would have expected that, say, a team defensive structure would have looked, because they needed to get some field position. Like, for North to compete and to hold up, they needed to be able to get their fair share of clearance and then to be able to set the ground up so that they could defend Geelong's ball use. They did the first part marginally well. Like, they did get enough supply, but they just had there was no structure in their team D. So it only takes one player to be out of position, but I expected that would be done a little bit better, having, as I said, having the rider of those younger players, because those holes do present. One thing that did sort of prick me ears a little bit is Clarko said at halftime, they're getting us a little bit out of centre bounce in particular, but we've got some young players in there. As that interview finished, Luke Davies-Uniacke, Luke Parker and Jai Simpkin were walking into the centre bounce. So it's not as if there was youth there. It's not as if that they were too young in that part of the field. But they were outclassed, outstructured and out-talented for the majority of the match. As I said, the one result is with the players at his disposal is not surprising. But, yeah, if you're a North Melbourne supporter, you want to see a little bit more structure more often than you're seeing it at the moment.
It's going to be much easier for Richmond to show that they're making progress at the end of this season than North Melbourne.
Well, I think Richmond have had a lot of, and they're the counterpoint. Yeah, they've got a lot of players that are probably that are 20 games or less. Now, whether they're up to the 9's a lot. If you're playing 5 or 6, that's plenty. If you're playing 2 or 3, like the top 4 sides that they introduce, you're playing 2 or 3, but you're choosing to put them in because you think they can make you better. But these, when you get into a position where you're just playing players to fill roles when they're not ready, that's when you get these sort of results. I felt like Richmond have been there, but it's been really clear the way that they want to play. And it's been like their fast-moving offense, regardless of what defence they're up against, regardless of how dangerous it might be with a team that can turn over and come back at you just as fast, they've just gone, nah, we'll worry about us and we'll learn to play the way we want to play, and we'll deal with the consequences coming back the other way. Now, that was always going to be okay this year, and next year will be the challenge of, okay, how do we balance that up? So we want to do this in offense, but sometimes we might need to be a little more circumspect to be able to defend that turnover a little bit better. But for mine, like what Richmond have presented has been excellent. They've seen some of their young keys that have come to light, where I thought there was going to be a real dearth of those, and they've fallen short at times, but I think they've consistently had a crack. There's been a structure. I think there's something to sink your teeth into if you're a Richmond fan.
The best bit of the round was the Giants' third quarter, and it came after a blistering spray at halftime. Adam Kingsley was most unhappy with how they'd presented against their crosstown rival. There's enough accounts of this around to understand that it was a proper go. And gee, did it get a reaction?
I reckon he'd be good. He'd be good given a spray, I reckon. Because I don't reckon it would be too, like it would be high level. Like there'd be a bit of emotion and the voice would be raised.
Yeah.
But I don't reckon, I think that there'd be laser eyes. Like he'd be a good stare down competitor, I reckon.
He went ace, king, queen. So he started with Toby.
Oh,
so
did
he
he?
knew
Is
where
that
he
right?
was going. I think there was a little bit of a, you blokes keep telling me you care. You'll tell me on Monday you care. You don't care. You don't care.
Yeah.
You're having your backsides handed to you by Sydney for the 6th time in a row. You don't care. Don't tell me you care. Don't come and tell me on Monday you care.
How good. How good. Well, whatever it was effective. Now, they did kick their last goal of the second quarter, which sort of closed the margin down a little. But I know I love the interview on the way off. Like, can we please just step off our high horses a little bit? Like you're asking a competitor in the moment of competition, and he just happens to give a little bit of lip, and he would have been given the same lip directly, and he would have been taking it as well. So that was great.
The idea that was fat shaming was an embarrassment to fat shaming. Come on, let's.
You've never been in that position, mate. So.
How ridiculous!
But. So let's have a look and break it down. So the Giants gave up 27 inside 50s again in the first half and a couple shortly thereafter. So they were up to 30, like 2 minutes into the third quarter. Thereafter, they only gave up 14. So they can do this. They can be dominant from the middle. They can go forward and access their front six, and their front six can have a massive hurt factor. So String had kicked 3 in that run. 13 of the last 14 goals were the Giants. And in the third quarter, it was compelling. Like to go in a blink of an eye from 4 goals down to 4 goals up. So Stringer kicked 3 in that. Cadman kicked 3. Bedford 2. Five separate single goal scorers. 2 of them off the back, Himmelberg and Ash. A couple of midfielders and Green. So you've got a raft of players that can hit the scoreboard. How good would it have been for their back six to actually look up and go, oh, we're not on our heels at the moment. We can actually play the game on our toes, and let's get forward and let's get aggressive. And like all we need to do is win contests a little more often in the front half and put a little bit of heat on when the opposition get the ball in their hands. Well, this is fun. So maybe the Giants have unlocked something that they can go and explore more, because if they can get on their front foot and play in their front half more often, who needs a tsunami when you're just when you're just playing plug and play footy from stoppage to front half.
You'd nominated Finn Callaghan for us on Wednesday, and when they went, he again was the central figure in that.
Yeah, and then the numbers reinforce that. If you're going to tag, you're preparing for the Giants and you're going to sit on someone or you're going to run with someone and you've got someone who's got the capacity to do it, well, he's the one. Because he really does open them up. He can run out of a stoppage, so he can get from the inside to the outside, which means that he gets in close enough to win his own ball, but he's got legs to get out. And in transition play, he'll get back to support the back six, and be the player who breaks the first line of pressure with clean hands or with a 1-2, and then all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, you're in the midfield. The ball's in the midfield, and you've got 12 players offside because of his play. So I think he's exceptional at what he does. He's a big unit to be able to run so well. We're blessed at the moment to see so many high-end players play so consistently. And the question of tagging is always there. And I think most coaches will have it in their back pocket and probably be holding it until we get to qualifying final rounds.
So Toby Green not guilty on the fat shaming front, but terribly lax getting himself suspended. That's just, he has that in him. It wasn't in the moments where the game was turning, so he didn't go and physically impose himself as a reaction. It was an undisciplined moment in the first half when it was going against them.
Well,
and he's going to miss a really important game as a result.
Yeah, well, and this is an important game for the Giants and a massive game for the Dogs. So, and the hits keep coming. I think that the Giants have been able to stand up with players out. That part, I think they can cover. I think they will find a way because they seem to have built this depth of list that's just ready to go. It's matured. Maybe Adelaide are in the same position. It's matured to a point where they're more than ready to face and to handle when they lose a couple. But you need to be like this is probably that last part of Toby's for all the greatness that he brings and all the good elements that he brings to game day, to his leadership, to the club and to the team. It's still these, when he's on the line, because he loves to bend it. He loves to step over it and fudge that line a little bit. But when he goes a little bit over, like missing a week, he'd be disappointed with himself as much as his teammates would be. It's he probably doesn't need to do it anymore. He's mature enough to know that he doesn't need to overstep that line in that manner. But it might be instinctive. It's something that happens and he looks back and goes, "Oh, I've done it again."
Yeah. Still there. The best bit was the Giants' third quarter. The worst bit was the flogging that Essendon got. It was the most predictable 90-point result you've ever seen. I felt like you said it at the start of our broadcast. We had all gathered, everyone, Mark Thompson, all of you had gathered just anticipating a 15-goal result, and it's precisely what we got.
Oh, the first centre bounce was won by the Western Bulldogs. Liberatore goes and wins the hard ball, spins out 180 degrees, handballs to Bontempelli. And it was like the stadium was silent. It was like everyone's gone, yep, there we go. And then Bontempelli, I think he hits Norton straight off with the kicker, a 55-metre pass around his body. But, I mean, Norton's on, I think it's on Blackiston. And, like, in the end, you get the same thing. Essendon had 8 players, or they had 7 players with 10 games or less. They had 7 players with 8 games or less. Like this, they had players that, like, unless they were in a certain situation, might not even be playing in their VFL side. Like so it was what we expected. But this is probably more a competition question than a club question. How does it get to this? How do you get to the position where the bottom parts of lists are so scarce for players that can come in and play a role at AFL level? But yeah, Dogs did what they needed to do. They looked really dangerous going forward. They were damaging through the midfield. Their defence wasn't tested and was never going to be tested. So they don't learn a lot about themselves, similar to the Geelong result. Yeah, but they just go on to next.
Nick Daicos made Sunday afternoon worthwhile at the MCG. His bench asked me last night who will win the Brownlow. With some certainty now, Nick Daicos is winning the Brownlow, isn't he?
Said that a couple of years ago, though, didn't we? It would be irrefutable that he would be in the top 3, top 5, but what he's putting together now, and Collingwood have won a lot of games, but they have spread the load a fair bit. But he is just so consistent. He's more than a generational player, isn't he? He jumped into it. Like we were talking about, players that have played 20 games or less, and you can't handle that if you got too many of those. Well, he was there, but he was contributing from day one and made a difference to Collingwood from day one. And when you're having 42 and kicking 3, so his last since the Collingwood bye, the last 6 weeks, he's averaged 35 and a goal. So hitting the scoreboard makes a bit of a difference. So when you kick 3 goals, it's sort of you're not just getting touches now. You're hitting the scoreboard as well. I think for a midfielder in particular, if like getting the ball and distributing is great, winning contested ball and clearance is great, doing it as often as he does it and as consistently as he does it is great. But hitting the scoreboard just adds that another string to your bow, and it stands out. So, I mean, he's got the 3 votes from yesterday, there's no doubt. Probably Freo 43 touches and a goal. Carlton 36 and a goal in a win. West Coast 34 and a goal. Like, you just keep going. He's had 5 times he's had 35 or more. Noah Anderson 6 times 35 or more this season. Bailey Smith 35 or more 4 times. Wanganeen-Milera 4 times. So we've got exceptional, consistent ball winners, and touches are touches, but when you can use them as well, and he does, they're pretty exceptional and a big impact player.
I think he's going to streak them on Brownlow night. He would have won it 2 years ago, bar for the injury. He broke the record last year running second. So Noah Anderson, Jordan Dawson, Bailey Smith, Matt Rao, Caleb Sarong, Tom Green, Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. I think it'll be a procession.
The other thing that Nick that Collingwood have been able to do for Nick is getting from the inside back, to that metre or 2 outside. Like, he got stuck inside a lot, and he was easier to tag when he had to be that inside player. So they've been able to structure up the team so they can pull him back out of that to utilise his quite significant talents more on the fringes of the contest rather than being in and under. Now, he did the in and under okay, and some of his hands from inside looked exceptional, but leave that to a Tom Mitchell, leave that to Pendlebury, leave that to Ned Long, who's come in and doing that more often now, and get your class just a little bit more on the outside.
PFI, preliminary final integrity, is Gold Coast have had 2 landmark wins in 3 weeks, and in the middle they disgraced themselves. But what we saw on Saturday in the Q Clash, this is one of the key markers. You have to stand up one day to Big Brother, and my goodness, they did it. Landmark wins. So I just put a base ladder predictor together just to watch the ebbs and flows. So home teams and favourites, tried to leave judgment out of it. This one win moves Gold Coast into the top 4 and Brisbane down to 6th. Now, I won't make any adjustments along the way.
On your ladder?
Just on the very basic one as a platform.
Yep.
Which gives you an idea of the magnitude of it. So there's the what will it end up meaning, but then on the day, to dominate a team that had lorded over you for 6 or 7 years, in fact, for your entire existence, this was a moment in time.
It absolutely was, and it was consolidated. It was across, Brisbane hit the scoreboard a little bit late, but for the first 3 quarters, it was a domination in contested ball. The hurt factor in front of the ball was high. The rebound off the back that we know when Gold Coast are playing their best footy was there. Brisbane couldn't score. This is a side that had been moving the ball, and the conditions didn't help what Brisbane had been doing, but Brisbane have always found a way. And they're full of big bodies who you'd think, and they have bullied the Gold Coast Suns before. So we sort of get that flip. You're sort of talking about the Giants and Kingsley having a crack at his players saying, you're going to roll over again against a side that's had your measure. Well, the chat might have happened through the week, and there was an opportunity there, and the Suns picked up. And there's a lot of young players that have still got a lot of improvement in them, in the Suns. but together they played a consolidated team performance that absolutely ground out one of the most experienced and best teams in the competition. So that's talking about sort of hanging a hat and lifting the bar and showing what you're capable of. Talking about big boy months or big boy performances. That's you can't help but stand up and see that, look at that and think, well, that's going to build belief for them against anyone, anytime. And, the next month or two is going to be exciting. They're pretty much there now, aren't they?
Yes, so they would have to do something catastrophic to miss. But they're a legit top 4 chance with the set of games that they've got to come.
Well, that win opens that up. And as soon as you open up top 4, you're not just trying to survive in the top 8 anymore, even though you do need to do that. When you're chasing something, it's just so much more positive. Like if you're trying to hold on, like Bulldogs, they're outside and they're chasing. They're chasing to get into the top 8. At the moment, maybe Brisbane was sitting in that top 2 position or close enough, and then now and trying to hold on to it. Now they need to get going to chase for a home final. Always better to be trying to be chasing or heading towards something or having to earn something than trying to, just put it in your back pocket and protect it. So the Suns have that now with the top 4. So that's even more compelling. So I think that it's all a matter of, once again, narrative and how you set it up. But it's an exciting month of footy for them, given that they're going to achieve firsts for that organisation.
So what comes next? They've got this sticky draw: Collingwood, Sydney, Fremantle and Hawthorn. The most imaginative minds can have them missing the 8. I think it's more a question of, are they going to finish 2nd or are they going to finish 6th? And there's a lot at play come Saturday night against Collingwood at the G.
They're not going to die wondering, I know that much. Like, so if they were dancing on ice last year and they're put in a position here when they've had a bad performance, what will they focus on? They will clearly focus on the things that they do well, which is in and around the ball, contest, clearance, field position. But the element of taking the game on will definitely be there. And they're not going to come up against sides that are going to challenge them any more than what Collingwood are. So even in the last 6 weeks, Adelaide's defensive profile has been exceptional, and we'll spend time on them. So they're only giving up 62 points against, and they've been about there for the last 3 months, let alone for the last month and a half. But Collingwood is they're at 66 points at the third best defensive side the last 3 weeks. So what Brisbane are going to come up against is a team that defends really well, that is going to do everything in its power and stops sides rebounding and fast movement and turnover play before it even starts. Collingwood control their offense really quite slow at times and quite structured to be able to keep whatever field position that they take. So Brisbane are up against that, but Brisbane will be trying to put speed in the game. They'll be trying to run back at Collingwood. It's going to be a fascinating contest. And you're right. If they can't fix it now and they lose another one, then they get into that nexus where you're sort of starting to realise that, okay, there's a downside as much as there's an upside. There's a downside. So, but look, you have to back them because they've had the wherewithal over a number of years. I love the coach and his demeanour. They've clearly got really strong leadership on field. If that sort of performance repeats itself, then it's a red flag. Right now, I'm giving them a mulligan, but it doesn't last for long.
Right game at the right time, I reckon. Come to the MCG and face Collingwood and show us your worth. 98-point winners over Port Adelaide in the Showdown Bucks, and knowing what showdowns are, there's a bit for Matthew Nicks to dream about at the moment. There
is years of work to be able to put together a performance like that, and you do get games, events, moments, occasions that lift you and fuel belief and fuel a sense of destiny of the work that you've done to get to where you want to go. Now, Adelaide is very similar to Gold Coast Suns. They haven't been there for a while. They've been knocking on the door. They've threatened. Everything is coming together for them. Even their players, they'd have a list of 5 or 6 players, 7 maybe, that are outside of that 22, that they're not even the 7th or even the 30th player or the 33rd player on the list. He could be the next guy in to play a specific role in, if a certain role is missed. And I think that's the power of that competition for spots. One, the realisation that you are making that the role you're playing makes a significant difference to the team's performance. And I think that's part of coaching and filling players with this sense of purpose for what they're doing and what it means to the bigger picture. You can see that Adelaide have that. But yeah, slippery conditions. You can question the motivation of Port at the moment. There's no doubt that you can do that. But to be able to stick 103 tackles in a game of footy, that's a great sign. Like, the conditions help with that, but they only missed 25. So they had 128 attempts for 103 stuck tackles.
Yep.
So that's over 80%. Anything over 70% is good. Like 80% is elite. The competition average on the weekend was 66. And just for reference, Gold Coast Suns were above 80% as well with the Lions. So it is a stat that, when you review it, you look back and you go, oh yeah, that's a big reason, because we just weren't able to get through us or past us or around us. So the Crows have got some grunt. They've got some real strength inside. We know they've got the run outside, and they're the best defensive side in the last 3 months. Their profile looks excellent. Close loss to Hawthorn, really tight tussle and contests against Collingwood at the G that they went down by a goal and a half. That's their only losses in the last 10 weeks.
And they've got those two teams on the way in.
Oh, and they're more than ready for it. Like, you're chasing and you're breaking new ground. Like, so they've been, as I said, they were a bit poor bugger me for a couple of years, and everything that could go wrong did go wrong for them. But the momentum that they have at the moment flips it on its head, and now they're a very real. You wouldn't want to come up against Adelaide anywhere, let alone go and play them in a final on their home deck. Yep. It's it just adds another one to the mix, doesn't it?
And Port, if you dilute the unity and the commitment, which is what they did at the start of the year, you get these results: 98 points, 91 points, 90 points, 76 points. A team that had never given up has developed the habit of giving up. And this is just straight cause and effect. This will be one of the great cautionary tales when history is written, is if you dilute the commitment and unity of a club, this is what you end up with.
Yeah, picking and choosing. I mean, we can all fall into that at times, needing to get a reward or knowing what we're going to be rewarded with before we put the effort in. And it's just a human thing sometimes when there's nothing to play for, when you feel like there's questions to be answered, or even the answers to those questions and they're full stops, which is what we're looking at. Hinkley's tenure is a full stop. Their season in 2025 is a full stop. There'll be questions potentially on personnel. Like there's probably questions on, and when you get full stops of eras, that gives pause for individuals to consider, well, then where to for me? And you reassess. And that's probably going on the field and off the field for Port Adelaide. And when you're thinking and when your heart and your mind is over there, you're not able to contribute or focus on what you need to do to find elite performance, and that's where they're at. But then you see those blokes just pop up. The same blokes. Butters just pops up, has a crack the whole time. Ollie Wines pops up and has a crack. So it really comes down to personal character as much as anything, and wherewithal. And there's a couple that have got it that'll never shy away, no matter what the circumstances are. But there's others that are more affected, and that's what we see.
So what would you like to do with your seedings, Nathan Buckley?
I'm going to penalise the Lions, and I'm going to reward the Crows. So I've got Geelong at 4. I've got Brisbane at 3. They dropped down from 2. I've got Adelaide at 2 and Collingwood still at 1. I've got to shine for the Crows and what they've been able to do. I think they're in really good shape. I like what I saw from the Giants, their response in the second half. So I've got them with an asterisk outside of the 4 at the moment.
All right. I'm throwing 4 open. Whoever blows my hair back in round 21 can have 4. So at the moment, Fremantle are there, but I could have the Giants. I could have Geelong. I'm totally uncommitted at 4. So come out, Bulldogs, Giants, Hawthorn, Fremantle, Geelong. Just blow my hair back in round 21.
But you don't. Admittedly, it only takes a zephyr for
right.
that.
Yeah,
but
the Bulldogs could be still in when they're in 9th place. 3's Adelaide, only because I don't want to corrupt 1-2. They're about to play, so Brisbane stay 2. Which is just a confection of the WWE.
There you go.
And Collingwood 1. So I've got 1 versus 2 on Saturday night.
And what day do you reckon Nasiah is going to sign on in the middle of Marvel?
I hope it's this afternoon. Maybe that's a Tuesday activity. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's all ahead of us. Well, I mean, we saw that fixture. We saw that there were disparities between the haves and the have-nots. That's not going to go away in the next month, but there's some exciting fixtures to hang our hat on, and you might even get the occasional St Kilda Melbourne game that is a dead rubber, but brings us some joy.
Yep. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, all
Crackers.
stacked in round 21.